not the, I'd say an. Sorry, we're actually lucky enough to have two, and in fact 3 positions. I'm not familiar with wearing these sort of...
Not easy with this.
Is that all right? So, good evening, everyone. I'm, as I've been introduced, a local independent councillor on Cambridge City Council. And I'm not going to claim any moral superiority over party politicians simply because I'm an independent. Independents have been around since the beginning of local government in the 1880s. So the experiment in democracy I want to talk about is very much an ongoing one. Political parties love to label independents, sometimes unfairly. We're mavericks, loners, critics, outsiders, rebels, and of course we're not team players. They like to rubbish us as we are often a thorn in their side. However, most independents see themselves in a more positive light. We have greater freedom, no party whip, so we can venture into areas where political parties would rather avoid. We're free to ask the awkward questions, to challenge the status quo, and to speak up for our residents and help them to navigate the bureaucratic fiefdoms of local government. So we see ourselves more as, I'm fine actually, John, thanks. We see ourselves more as free thinkers, guided by conscience and conviction, rather than party dictate. As people who want to play a creative part in community politics. And in doing so, we are likely to ruffle a few feathers, but hey, feathers will get ruffled in the cut and thrust of politics. So tonight I want to explore the ways in which elected independents can be effective in the local political process. The first point is that independents cannot depend on a party label and party resources to win elections. For independents, there are no safe seats. You need to earn your votes. And how do you do that? By living in your ward, being alert to what's going on, knowing what isn't working and what needs fixing, and what concerns your residents. And what's your response? Listening, learning, communicating, and above all, prompt action. So our election byline for the past 10 years or so has been people before politics and community before party. Because independents need to I'm sorry, I'm reading this actually because because independents need to cultivate this close link with the people they represent, party politicians often charge independents with being parochial. We don't see the bigger picture. As an example of this in Cambridge, I could mention the Cambridge City deal that seeks to transform our city. Under the rules of proportionality, no independents serve on the City Deal board. And were we to do so, we would have serious reservations about its impact on our streets and neighbourhoods. So the role of independents in this instance is to constantly remind the strategists of the impact of their growth agenda at street level. For instance, we have the redesigning of Histon and Milton roads to accommodate the guided bus. I said I'd be interested to hear to learn from Froome independents how their councils, led by the independents, are not sullied by the party mentality, and I think you addressed that. So I'll leave that out. Clearly, one of the purposes of local government is to expedite business, but political parties are often responsible for holding it up. For example, a recent example at Cambridgeshire County Council, where there is no overall control. It took over 12 hours to set a budget. The political parties did not want to associate with others. However, the independent group was the first group to be prepared to compromise. And what was their motivation here? To ensure that by setting a budget, county residents would not be deprived of services and the council workers not deprived of pay. So here, independents demonstrated a willingness to be flexible and not ideologically dogmatic and tribalist. Perhaps independents have less ideological clutter. So party politicians have the benefit of a party machine when fighting an election. What do we rely on? We rely on our local connections in the community. Our campaigns are entirely funded by voluntary donations. And we also have a network of street reps, so our delivery of leaflets is seamless, effective, and actually fun. When it comes to communicating with electors, it's important to remember Marshall McLuhan's famous axiom, the medium is the message. How you compose your message, the quality of the language you use, the appearance of your communications. All of these communications as to whether or not you take your readers seriously, that you respect their intelligence and their ability to understand complex issues. We've made, Castle Independents have made a conscious decision to use a paper newsletter and a simple email circulated newsletter. Our critics in the early days would joke that the text was too dense and technical. The truth is, over and over, residents comment on how clear and informative the newsletters are, how they demystify local government consultations, and how well they alert them to mobilise on a local issue. People don't want to be patronised and presented with party leaflets full of staged photos. So the communication media we use works with our voters, who are generally settled residents, older people or families who are interested in toddler groups, community halls, nursery provision, schools, bus services, care at home, safe pavements, traffic, and so on. Services which make our daily life tick. So where do we sit within the party political system? Independents have to, sorry, I missed my student comments. So where do we sit within the party political system? Independents cooperate to achieve goals, whereas the parties may perceive such cooperation with rival groups as a betrayal, and so the impasse sets in. We've exploited the formal constitutional arrangements at the City Council to secure influence. Our small group of 2 independents on the City Council has morphed into a minorities group of 4, having picked up a single Green, who I think is here this evening, and a Conservative. There's no whip, and each member votes at full council or on committees they sit on as they see fit. As a group, we're entitled to office space, we're accorded official briefings, committee places, and spokesperson and responsibility allowances. We also benefit from certain speaking rights and formal debates, and all attend informal group leader discussions on equal terms with other larger groups. All of these formal trophies of office do not of themselves amount to much, but for independents that mean business, they can be a great deal of help. By taking advantage of the arrangements, we better represent our electorate and can punch above our weight to ensure their voice is heard. There is a special quality of independence arising from our concern and affection for our community. We're there for the long haul and not on a political career ladder. So for us, each campaign is a new campaign where we build on our reputation and person-to-person engagement with residents. They see before them local councillors who care about the ward and its residents, and we rely on a loyal constituency who turn out to vote and help with campaigns. They're connected to the place they live and they know their councillors. So as I said in the beginning, I'm not claiming a moral superiority as an independent. The difference between us and party politicians, I would argue, is that independents are connected to the local community in which they also live. I actually overlooked one point I was going to make about the problems with the party system. And one of the problems independents meet in the face of the party is, for instance, in our ward in Cambridge, the majority of voters on the electoral register are students. And students in university towns across the country vote along party lines. So we find students who are here. I'm not being criticising students, it's just the nature of the system. Students are here for a few weeks of the year. They don't pay council tax, yet they can exercise their right to vote and ultimately displace a truly local candidate. And the losers in this scenario are really the long-term local residents and settled communities who may well have someone who is not there for the long term to represent them. This also leads to, I think, at the local level, it breeds a kind of anti-democratic cynicism. We often hear comments about a local election as principally a test of the national performances of a particular party groups. And on the doorstep, you'll hear voters telling you that they absolutely love the work you're doing and do carry on, but they personally want to send a message to the national government through a vote against a particular party. Another kind of cynicism, which I referred to, we've had it recently, a recent pre-election leaflet distributed by a local, I won't mention the party, but a local party, conflating the European referendum with the forthcoming local election. As independents, we don't presume to tell people how they should vote in national and European elections or any other. One of the reasons we do this is that as independents, we draw together local people from all political backgrounds and from none. A further example of how parties often put national issues before local community concerns is an anecdote from a local city councillor being told by one of the Castle Ward's former, I have to say, Lib Dem activists to, well, forget about Castle, go and work somewhere else in the city, Castle's in the bag. Now, what does that tone, what's the tone of that remark, what does that tell you about the party's attitude to their residents? These examples, for me, illustrate that political parties are often not locally connected and will more than often seek to expand their influence locally on the back of their national reputation. So I would say independents think differently about their electorate and their ward. We win because we have local knowledge and have built a local reputation and genuinely care about our ward, our residents and the city we live in. And again, our byline is people before party, community before politics. Thank you.